Welcome to the Sports Minute. If you like the video this evening, please comment and share it. And please subscribe to my page, Vincent Turner 560 here on YouTube. The video this evening is not going to be about football. It's going to be about basketball from a college perspective, about my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, and about a gentleman who changed the culture of Memphis basketball, really Memphis sports. And it's a sad, sad day on April the 2nd, 2011, that Larry Finch went to glory. But I'll tell you this, if Coach Finch is looking down from the heavens, you changed this young man's life back in the season of 1972 to 1973. But I'm going to start before that. Remember April the 4th, I believe 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King was killed in my hometown, Memphis, Tennessee. And at that time, I was 8 years old, and I didn't know what was going on, but there was so much chaos around me. But as years progressed, and I started coming into my teens and 11 and 12-year-olds, things changed in the city of Memphis. It was very racial, very divided. But there was a gentleman in 1969 that was a highly recruited basketball player out of Orange Mound, by way of Melrose High School, and his name was Larry Finch. And a lot of schools were coming in recruiting him. And even as a 9-year-old, I knew about Coach Finch, or the basketball player Larry Finch, because he had won a state championship with Ronnie Robinson, his best friend at the time. And everybody thought Coach Finch was going to go to the University of Oklahoma, but he decided to stay home. And that angered a lot of black politicians and black people in the city of Memphis. But he went out there. I remember his first year, me being, I believe, at the time, 11 years old. In his first season, Memphis State at the time went 6-20, I believe. Then the junior year under Coach Finch, is him playing star point guard. This way all changed. 1972, I believe February the 5th, Memphis State played Louisville. The Louisville Cardinals, who were ranked, I believe at the time, number 5 in the country. And they went in there and beat Louisville 73-62. And I remember being a 7th grader, 12 years old. I remember the city of Memphis went crazy. The commercial appeal, I remember the front cover the next day I got up. Can you believe Memphis State has shocked the nation? And Larry Finch was the guy behind it. Then coming into the 72-73 season, there was a lot of expectations for the Memphis State basketball program. It got the #1 JUCO player in the country by the name of Larry Keenan out of Birmingham, Alabama. And remember, that team started on. I didn't know how special it was going to be, but I knew this. I knew they had a chance to be great. And it didn't start off all well in that 72-73 season. They lost 3 out of their first 5 games and went 2-3. And at the time in my life, I was in the 8th grade at Sherwood Junior High. I was one of the first students bused from crosstown to the other part of town, if you know what I mean. But I remember going through that season, I followed that basketball team faithfully. And then all of a sudden, Memphis State got it together. And one of the greatest announcers that ever called college basketball or college football and was dedicated to his program was Jack Eaton. And boy, listening to Jack Eaton on WMC Radio 790 was something special. But I'm going to tell you when it got real heavy. At the end of the year, Memphis State won the Missouri Valley. They won 21-5. And at that time, they only had 32 teams that made the tournament. So Memphis State got a bye into the Midwest Regionals semifinals. I remember they played a real good South Carolina team that was loaded with 4 NBA players and an Olympian on the squad. Brian Winters, Mike Dunleavy, Alex English, and Kevin Joyce. And they had a big center by the name of Danny Traylor. And the tournament was played in Houston at Hofheinz Pavilion. And I remember that Memphis State team beat that South Carolina team by 20 points. And I said, this team, let me back up. 91-75, I would believe they beat that South Carolina team by 16 points. And I said, this Memphis team has a chance to be special. And I noticed going to a junior high school that was, I would say, 70% white and 30% black, I started hearing teachers in the school start talking about Memphis State basketball. I started seeing better relationships among the students, white and black. I seen the lift of the city, watching the city news at night on WMC TV 5, a WHBQ Channel 13, a WIEC Channel 3. But then that Saturday, when the Tigers defeated Kansas State by 20 points, and I said, oh my God. And Larry Finch was leading the way. And it'd be the Kansas State team that had a point guard by the name of Lon Kruger, who went on and became a pretty good coach at the University of Florida and ULV. And in his alma mater, Kansas State, I said, you know what? I said, this team got a chance to maybe win it all. They going to the Final Four. And I always think to this special moment in my life. I remember staying up that Saturday night and watching the news what came on at 10 p.m. Central Standard Time in Memphis. And I remember them cutting to the Memphis International Airport. And I saw at least 7,000 to 10,000 fans in the lobby. And I saw the Tigers get off that plane, Larry Finch, Ronnie Robinson, they had cut live. And it was dun, 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 dun. And boy, as a 13-year-old, I turned it up and became excited. I said, oh my God, this can't be real, man. The Tigers are going to the Final Four. And all that week, I listened to the radio station, WLOK, WDIA, WHBQ, watching the news, seeing my father go down to his cleaners. At the time, I grew up with a gentleman that owned a dry cleaners, seeing my dad with a smile on his face. It was the pride of Memphis, black and white coming together. Little old Memphis, Tennessee on the map. Because a few years earlier, there was so much turmoil and a black mark put on my city. But that week leading up to the Final Four, I looked at all the teams that made it. Indiana with Steve Downing. Providence with the great Marvin Barnes and Ernie DiGregorio. And then UCLA had the Elevate. The Stars. They were the measuring stick of college basketball at the time under John Wooden. They won by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lucius Allen at the time, of Mike Warren and Sidney Ricks or Curtis Rowe. It was about that big redhead that went to glory last year, who I respect dearly. One of the greatest college basketball players ever in Bill Walton. Then Tommy Curtis, Larry Farmer, Larry Holyfield, Jamal Whips, Greg Lee, Dave Myers. I said, oh my God, Memphis State is going to play in the Final Four. And leading up to that Saturday, the first game came on. 1 o'clock Central, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. And it was the Tigers against Providence. And man, Marvin Barnes was putting it in on Larry Keenan. And Providence was up in that game, I believe, by 10 to 15 points. And I said the dream was going to end. And then Marvin Barnes went down with a knee injury in the first half. And then I said, you know what? Game changer. Even though Ernie DiGregorio had like 32 points, Larry Finch, I believe, had 29, and Memphis State went on and cruised and overtook Providence in the second half and went on to win that semifinal game 98-85. And then UCLA handled their business against Indiana. And that Sunday I went to church with my mother. And I remember the minister, Eddie Curry, getting up in the pulpit. And before he even started, he said, let's give the city of Memphis a hand clap. And let's give Larry Finch a hand clap. Because he decided to stay home and didn't go to Indiana 3 years earlier. Then after church, I had a good night rest, got up, went to school, got on the bus. And all I could hear my friends talking about, man, are you going to watch the game tonight? Is Memphis State going to win? Can Larry Keenan handle Bill Walton? Can Larry Finch take us to Magic? And I was saying at the time, all day in my math class, science, history, all I can remember is my teachers at Sherwood Junior High talking about the basketball game. Got off that evening, got home. I know the tip-off was going to be at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. My father closed the cleaners early that day, came home about an hour earlier, had the Bacardi rum with him. Mother cooked the dinner early. She was working the night shift at GE, but she made sure everything was planned. Love to your mom, Miss Inez Turner, and to my father, Chester Turner. Both of them are still living, 88 and 86 years old. I'm very blessed. And then I remember my cousin, who I was talking to the phone, who was a senior at Hamilton High School, Mr. Edward Parson, who's an attorney right now, retired in Naples, Florida. And he said, Vinny, can you believe, and he said this before the game, what would happen if Memphis State won the national championship? I said, as a 13-year-old, I said, Memphis going to turn this city upside down. First half went back and forth. And I remember halftime score 39-39. And I remember Bill Cook, who was a freshman on that Memphis State squad, hitting a long shot from 20 feet out to tie the game at halftime. And I said, you know what? I said, that team of Memphis State, that 72-73 team of Larry Keenan, Ronnie Robinson, Wes Westfall, Billy Bruford, the billionaire Bill Lowry, and head coach Gene Bartow, and of course the man of the hour, Larry Finch. They got a chance to win this thing. Second half started off. Game went back and forth for about, I say, 7 minutes, and then UCLA with the big red head, Bill Walton, put the icing on the cake. If you would have told me a center, listen to what I'm saying, in today's basketball terms, that was very fundamentally sound, that had jump hooks and shooting the ball off the glass, Bill Walton went 21 or 22 from the field and scored 44 points, I would say to you, was crazy. But at the end of the day, Bill Walton had a hell of a game, and UCLA won the national championship 87-66. Even though the Tigers lost that game, that changed in my heart about the city of Memphis and where I'm from. I'm proud to be a Memphian. Even though there's a lot of problems right now happening into my city. And right now I live here in Douglasville, Georgia, which is 20 miles from downtown Atlanta. But every season I get excited about Memphis State basketball, which is now the University of Memphis, coached by a former player, Mr. Penny Hardaway, and a former NBA All-Star. And I still get excited every year that Memphis has got a chance to go to the Final Four. And think about what Coach Finch, the basketball player Larry Finch, has done for Memphis and doing for him now. Think about all the great players that followed him. Keith Lee, Andre Turner, Baskerville Holmes, Doom Haynes, the late great Bobby Parks, Cedric Henderson, David Vaughn, Michael Wilson, Chris Gardner, Leon Mitchell, Justin Wimmer, Mingo Johnson, Joey Dorsey, Derrick Rose, Chris Douglas Roberts, Antonio Anderson, All those great players has played at the University of Memphis. And even now, Mr. Doing that's doing this thing with the Detroit Pistons. I could be more proud ever of being a proud of a basketball program than slash the Memphis State Tigers and the University of Memphis. And I want to say this evening as I talk on this platform, all that is possible for the great Larry Finch. I never got to meet him. I saw him afar. And I wanted to go up to him and introduce myself back when he was the head coach at Memphis State, but there was a lot of people getting at him. But I thought he'll coach the University of Memphis slash Memphis State forever. And if it's one thing that hurts in my heart, it's how that school treated him. A guy that changed the face of that program and took a chance in 1969 and said, you know what, I can make a difference. And if you're a true Memphis State fan slash University of Memphis and you happen to come across this video, always think of Coach Larry Finch, the basketball Larry Finch, and his family. And just say a special prayer and say, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Finch. Thank you, Coach Finch. Thank you as the player. You've been an inspiration to me, man. And that's why I strive to always do better as a man and strive to do better as a person. Because Larry Finch changed my life. And he changed me as a sports fan, even though I love the game of football. But Memphis State basketball is always going to be in my heart and soul because of Coach Larry Finch and the basketball player Larry Finch. Kudos to you, Mr. Finch, and your family. Thank you. If you like this video this evening, please come in and share it. Please subscribe to my page, Vincent Turner 560 here on YouTube. Y'all have a very, very blessed evening. And to all the supporters of the University of Memphis basketball program at Memphis State University, thank you.